What's good? Today we're doing a VOD review today on heroic Sylvanas. I know this boss has been pretty tough from what people have been seeing on streams. Not a lot of guilds killed it. We ended up killing it like last minute, right before like in like 3 in the morning or something like that. Like we sweated out to get it, right? But we are gonna go over this boss fight. It is a long one. It's about 15 minutes in the actual fight kill. So this video probably is going to be around 20-ish minutes or so, if not more. I will have chapters out for it, so you can kind of skip through phase 1, 2, and 3. I will try to give, a bunch of tips, pointers, something that'll help you out in terms of the overall game plan of the boss. And I'll also try to give out like healer stuff and specific to that and then specific to Resto Shaman. Now, if you're interested in more Resto Shaman content or have any other questions of your own about Resto Shaman, you could go follow me on twitch.tv/JdTre. Reach out to me there. I will be streaming all of our Mythic Prog, where you'll be able to just hit me up directly from there, or you can go into my Discord. It is a new up-and-coming running thing that I have going on, so you could go in there, reach out to me through private messages, and we can talk from there. So yeah, let's kind of get to it. So right here, we actually downsized all the way to a 16-man heroic team. We have 4 healers right now. As of like 7/14/2021, the boss got nerfed a little bit. The size of the mechanics that like Veil of Darkness, stuff like that, got nerfed and reduced. So stuff like that, you can actually now allow your team to actually bring more of a higher comp size. But we opted to go for 19, and then we actually downsized even more to that to 16 to just end up getting the kill. So that's kind of what was necessary at the time, but I think now with the nerfs that just recently got hotfixed, she's a little bit more doable with like a 20-man or a 20, even a 25, right? If you guys really know what you're doing. So let's get going on the fight. Basically, phase 1 is a fairly simple portion of the fight. It has about 3 or 4 mechanics. Dealing with them can be a little bit difficult early on, especially when people don't understand the levels of damage. You have this debuff right here. I think it's called like Barbed Arrow or something like that. It's a just debuff that stacks up on you, and the way that you take that arrow off of you is to get linked to a domination chain, and then that allows you to take it off. So these domination chains right here on the ground will link to you, and then it'll take off your debuff. On normal, you won't have this purple circle, but on heroic, you will have this purple circle around the domination chain. If you touch that purple circle, you will get one shot. So you just do not need to touch that purple circle. Whenever you get chained, you need to run away until they kill your chains, right? This is very, very late into the night, so people are kind of getting a little bit drowsy and not killing these chains as fast as possible. But the chains are the most important mechanic at the time, so you just need to kill those as fast as possible. Now, there's going to be another mechanic called Wailing Arrow that's going to be coming up right here. You can see on my bigwigs the timer. This is the tank. The tank is just going to be your basic like run out of the raid with the debuff, similar to Artificer, similar to Fate Scribe, stuff like that, right? Those type of mechanics where it's proximity and you have your tank just go out to the very edge and you mitigate it. We are using most of our CDs on that Wailing Arrow because usually the Wailing Arrow lines up with another mechanic. So it'll be Wailing Arrow with Domination Chains, Wailing Arrow with like an arrow debuff, a dagger debuff, stuff like that. Basically, Wailing Arrow is where we're using a lot of our mitigation. And like I said in some of my previous videos, if you ever want to see what cooldowns we're using, you can look right here on the right side of my UI. It'll show a list of cooldowns that are using and the timer on them. And I'll be able to link that weak aura down so that you can see that, so that you can play around that. So yeah, I mean, just dodge swirls, get a debuff, drop your debuff with the domination chains, and that's pretty much phase 1. You're just kind of doing this on repeat until you get to phase 2, and then phase 3 is where it really starts to pick up in terms of actually mechanically like sound gameplay. There is a good portion of damage right here, so you do want to kind of allocate cooldowns, especially if you're progging on this boss, Heroic Sylvanas. You do want to allocate cooldowns and kind of space them out where you're able to, sufficiently like spread out your cooldowns and cover multiple damage events. Now that big black like cloud, that's called Veil of Darkness. Now whenever you get Veil of Darkness, I need to explain this for any healers. when you get Veil of Darkness, or when someone gets hit with Veil of Darkness, they get this debuff, right? And it starts at 5 on heroic. Now, what it does is it puts a healing absorb, and 25% of your healing is able to go to this healing absorb. Now, it then randomly starts to bounce to other members in the raid, and they now have this healing absorb on them as well. So you can see how this can become an exponential problem later on in phase 2 and phase 3, where if you have multiple people getting hit with Veil of Darkness, it'll just ramp up the healing absorbs where it's like almost unhealable. You'll never be able to get the healing absorbs off of people. So spacing in this fight, mechanical gameplay in this fight is very important, very high. So yeah, right here, this was pre-nerf, so there was a timing where you were wanting to push right before, or you were wanting to push a domination chain set and then push right after a domination chain set so you don't get double chains. I do not think currently right now that that's still a problem. I think you're able to get past that, but we haven't pulled it in the nerfed version yet, so we'll have to see. But basically, this is the intermission now. Everyone in the raid gets chains, and what we do is, what I called is everyone run personals, and then we have a rally and a devo on top of that because we're so spread out. That allows us the most coverage of defensives and the most coverage of healing CDs to be able to cover everybody. It's just about killing the domination chains as fast as possible. What we chose our range to actually target the outside ones, and we told our melee to go funnel from inside out. So we had our range go outside in, our melee go inside out in terms of what chains they should be targeting. And now we're just waiting for RP. We're just dodging massacre lines, and we're dodging swirls on the ground, and we're gonna be starting phase 2 here soon. So this mechanic right here, these red circles around you, it's called Banshee Scream. The way that works is basically you do not want to first off cleave anybody because you'll do damage to yourself and them, and you'll take damage to like 2 times the damage. Also, you don't want to be casting while she screams. When she screams, if you're casting, it'll do a silence. I think it's about like 8 or 10 seconds. It's a good portion of time. So you do not want to do that. You just want to stop casting, let the scream go off, and then you can go from there. Now, this is the P2, start of P2, where you're just going to be pretty much running across the chains. Dodge these waves. You're going to be running across bridges. You're going to be dodging these waves. She's RPing right now, so you cannot damage her. On this kill pool, I, as a Resto Shaman, went really, really heavy on the damage because we were kind of lacking a little bit on damage. So we were already overhealing a little bit, so I actually just went more of a damage. Like, I prioritized damage over healing because we didn't really need the healing. But what you're going to do is you're going to want to kick that rune cast, and then we're going to go here, and we're just going to like blast as much damage as we can right here. This is one of 2 damage events that you can do to Sylvanas during phase 2. So you want to maximize as much as possible. You ideally at the end of phase 2 want to get to around 74%. That's a pretty good number. This first damage event, if you can get it to around 78%, you're doing really well. And yeah, so now we have the Veil of Darkness coming up right after that. You just want to dodge this. You do not want anybody in your raid to get that healing absorb. That just puts you behind so much, and it's not fun to try to heal off as a healer, especially, you know, when you already have a multitude of other mechanics and damage events coming out and you just can't heal anybody. So here's another scream. We're spreading. Her damage event is actually over, and now we're going to now be doing the bridges. Now, after that first damage event, we're now about to start dealing with ads. There's a multitude of ads. There's like 5 or 6 ads. The main ones I want to tell you guys about are the Soul Judge and the Summoner. So the Soul Judge is going to be right here, the Maulforge Soul Judge. What the Soul Judge will do is she'll put out a debuff on random targets, these debuffs right here, and they'll be stacking it. They do shadow damage, and they stack up, right? The higher stacks they go, the higher percent. So at 5 stacks, it's 50% more damage on that on that damage tick that's happening on the player. What you need to do is you need to tell your raid they need to kill down the Soul Judge, and then once they kill the Soul Judge, you can then dispel this, and it'll go off your raid. If you have this, if the Soul Judge is still alive and you dispel, it'll then bounce to another player. So that's where the priority of the Soul Judge is like the highest and highest of priority, because you don't want to deal with that debuff too long. It does a good bit of damage, and like I said, right there, we were only handling the Soul Judge, but when you have the Soul Judge plus the Summoner, plus like other ads, it gets really, really hectic. So right here we have a summoner ad, and we don't have a soul judge in here. So the priority is going to go soul judge, and then summoner, and then anything else. So the summoner is the second one. The summoner actually dropped those orbs that you'll see on the next platform as well. There's going to be orbs that go on the ground. Those orbs do raid-wide damage. So that's where the priority of the soul, like I said, the soul judge into the summoner is very important. You're just dealing with Veil of Darknesses. I actually ended up getting hit by that. Shame on me. We had 2 people get hit by that. This was one of our not so clean pools, and we ended up killing on this pool, so there's that. Using wind rushes, using roars is very important for these bridges. You don't want to hang yourself up on these bridges too long. You want to actually get by as fast as possible. Right here is going to be an overlap where we're going to have a bridge plus a scream, and you're going to need to spread out while you're running across the bridge. So this movement speed is very, very important. What we do is we actually have a Devo, and then what we tell everybody is right after the scream goes off, I want everyone to use personals, because this platform has a lot of raid-wide damage, and using personals allows for this soul judge is going to jump to somebody randomly depending on aggro, and it jumped to the Boomy, and he had a defensive rolling, so he was able to live that, right? We throw a link, we throw a barrier. We're using a lot of cooldowns on this platform, and like priority still says, soul judge into summoner. So that's kind of how we're handling this platform. We use a good bit of cooldowns. We use personals. We told people, hey, use your health pots. Like, this is going to be a wall that's going to kind of be a prog point, which it was for us. So after you kill both the soul judge and then the summoner, you're then able to dodge that Veil of Darkness. We're going to cross this bridge, and we're now going to be able to go handle the second damage event, right? That's pretty much P2. I know we went through it pretty fast, and I didn't like stop and talk about every single thing, but this is already going to be a long video, so I didn't want to stop too much. But, you know, to sum it all up, for the most part, you're going to be running from chain to chain through across these bridges, right? First and foremost, don't fall off the bridge, like, obviously, right? Secondly, you want to use movement speed across the bridges. That's going to allow you the best chance to get from point A to point B. Third, when dealing with the ads, you want to go in the priority of summoner and then soul judge. It's very important to kill the orbs that the summoner spawns as fast as possible, so they don't detonate on their own. So you want to kill the soul judge. You want to kill the soul judge, then have your healers dispel, and then you want to kill summoner. If there's orbs out, you want to kill the orbs and then summoner, right? So that's kind of the priority in which you're wanting to kill ads. If there's no soul judge and there's only a summoner, kill a summoner, and vice versa. And during these damage events, you want to just pump as much damage, especially as a healer. You want to be able to pump out as much damage as you possibly can. Right here, these waves, dodge these waves. If you get hit with these waves, they actually stack up and they do like a lot of damage. At like 2 or 3 stacks, you like mess around and die. So you don't want that to happen. We're dodging our last Veil of Darkness. The one thing I would say for a raid leader is to basically just call out Veil of Darkness every single chance you can, because people usually forget and they forget to do it. So she actually phases at 73.3. You're seeing the portals coming up right now. There's another set of ads that are going to spawn. We have a scream. There's a lot of stuff going on, right? I use my Tide to kind of keep us healthy, because this scream is actually going to do a lot of damage. And then these ads are going to just be randomly targeting people. What we're telling our raid is just throw CCs, CC all these ads, because she's going to port us out anyways in a matter of 5 seconds. So I have a Tide to kind of stabilize us, and then we're just CCing the ads as much as possible just so they don't do any damage. We're not going to have to deal with them anyways. Now, this is where we're going to start to have, more of a mechanical breakdown. Phase 3 is definitely the prog point of this fight that's like really difficult, that you have to kind of just see in order to do well on, right? So there's these jump pads. There's going to be these 4 platforms in a square formation or a diamond in the presentation that we're at. There's these jump pads, right? You can just run off the platform and you jump to the next platform in order to get there. Now, the way that we're going is towards the right, so we're jumping, to the right platform, and then we're just always going to the right platform when we want to go to the next. The main mechanics here are going to be Banshee's Fury, Banshee's Scream, Veil of Darkness, and Wailing Arrows. Those 4 mechanics are very, very important, and right here you're going to see Banshee's Fury going out. The biggest thing to handle Banshee's Fury is you do not want to have anybody with stacks of the pools, which are about to come out in a second, while Banshee's Fury goes off. Because whenever this eruption right here happens, it'll erupt anybody with pools, depending on the amount of stacks they have, and it'll just like wipe your raid, right? So you do not want anybody to have any stacks on them of the pools in order when Banshee's Fury is going off. You'll see on platform 2 and 3, there's actually a couple overlaps where we're having to dispel tanks while the pools are going out. So right here, you see the pools going out. The biggest thing, tell your raid, nobody is allowed to soak these pools unless you're a tank, basically. Besides one exception, which we're about to get to. So that's kind of how that works. You're going to have your tank get the pools. He's going to go into the corner, and then we're going to dispel him. We're going to wait for his call on the dispel, and then we'll dispel him. So like I said, the importance of spreading is very, very big. Right here, you see we had 2 players actually get Veil of Darkness. They ended up stacking on each other, and they both got 10 stacks. So at that point, now we have to try to deal with 20 stacks of Veil of Darkness instead of 10, which is going to get kind of hectic and multiplicative in its own self, which is going to be annoying, right? But, you know, what can you do? After you do a couple of your spreads, you can then stack back up for Banshee's Fury. And Wailing Arrow is going to be the next mechanic that's going to be going out. So right here, Banshee's Fury is going out. We actually want to dispel our tank before that, like I said. And then we're now going to be starting Banshee's Fury. Once Banshee's Fury done, Wailing Arrow comes out. Now, in the current version right now, Wailing Arrow is a little bit bugged and behind. She gets spell queued, so sometimes she'll be doing a mechanic and a weak aura will tell you Wailing Arrow is going out. The best advice I can give you is to play off of her cast bar. That allows you to understand Wailing Arrow the best. People are going to lose their actual animation of their debuff, and they're going to think, oh, I'm safe to come back. No, you have to wait until she actually casts her 1, 2, and 3 Wailing Arrow before you come back. And I'll be able to explain that right here. So what we do is we actually send the first person, which is always a tank, to the right, and they're going to go get all the pools over there and bring all those pools back onto the main platform, and then we're going to, as a raid group, go to a clean platform and then start from that platform. That's the goal, right? We want to grab the pools from the next platform, bring them here, and then go into a fresh platform and then do the same thing and just kind of repeat that throughout the phase. We send our first arrow to the right, we send our second arrow to the left, which is a DPS player, grab those pools on the last platform and bring those back as well, and then the third player is going to go to the right as well. So this is the first Wailing Arrow. Like I said, watch her cast bar. She's now going to cast her second to the left, and our third is going to go to the right. So that's kind of how you play the Wailing Arrow. And then right after that Wailing Arrow sequence, there's going to be a Raise cast. She's casting Raise right here. And the person from the left platform, the people from the right platform that got those pools that brought them back to the first platform, we're dispelling them, and then we're just going off to the next platform. Ideally, nobody has stacks at this point, and this platform is very clean. If you've done your first platform like that, you did it correctly. When you go onto the second platform, you start out spread because Scream is going to happen next, and then you're going to go into a Veil of Darkness. Healing-wise, I would say the biggest CDs that you want to put down are going to be during your Banshee's Fury. That's when you're going to probably take the most damage, is during Banshee's Fury. And then a Banshee's Fury into a Wailing Arrow is like ideal. Sometimes you might be able to CD a Wailing Arrow if you need to, especially on platforms 3 and 4 where you're a little bit closer, probably mainly 4. But for the most part, Wailing Arrow doesn't do that much damage if you have some sort of like throughput going on at the time. So you'll see right here, Banshee's Fury is going out. We actually stack up, and we have a Darkness, and we have a Tide rolling right here. So this is allowing us to have that, dodge chance from the Darkness, and we have throughput with the Tide going. Wailing Arrows, as you can see in the weak aura, are actually starting. They all go to the right, and she's casting her Wailing Arrows right here. Like I said, it's going into the order of 1, 2, 3. The weak aura in this current version is not totally synced up. Even the timers aren't totally synced up, so you just have to play off her cast bar and have your raid leader call them like Wailing Arrow 1, 2, and 3. Now you see we have 2 and 3 waiting on this side because we don't want them to be on that platform taking damage, right? So we have the first one go over, and then we have 2 and 3 waiting on this jump pad. Once the first one goes, like she shoots out the first one, then we have the second one, and then etc. Third one, right? Right after that, Wailing Arrow is going to go into a Scream. Like I said, at this point for healers specifically, we do not have anybody running CDs for the most part unless we're doing a Banshee's Fury or a Wailing Arrow. I will say if you're any type of class that has ground effects, this is a rough fight right now. in terms of dropping ground effects. The platforms are bugged for some reason. So, you know, as a Resto Shaman, all my abilities and major cooldowns are ground effects. So I actually have to play with macros, which I actually made over here. I just made like shift 1, 2, 3 for my Healing Rain, Earthen Wall, and Spirit Link. Those are the main 3. And if you're a paladin, you know, Ashen Hollow, same thing, like stuff like that, right? You have to just make player, and you have to position yourself in the middle of the raid to then drop it. So on the third platform, we want to actually stack up as a raid because Banshee's Fury is the first mechanic on this platform. So we stacked up and dropped a Link, and then she goes straight into a Wailing Arrow. So you're going to see she's going to be casting her Wailing Arrow here in a second, and same thing applies, right? The tank that's on this platform is going to be grabbing the pools that drop on the ground. No DPS player should be grabbing that, and then the first tank that goes to the next platform should be grabbing those pools. We actually don't run any, like I said, we don't run any healer CDs for this Wailing Arrow because that's not really a pain point for the most part. It's mainly the Banshee's Fury. So we're pretty much repeating this phase. You know, there is a couple of overlaps here and there that are kind of tough to handle, but once you realize that, you know, the biggest pain points are going to be Banshee's Fury and Wailing Arrow, that's whenever you'll be able to like fix that and start to get like meaningful prog. So we actually had a couple Veil of Darkness cleaves right here, and you can see my frames are like all having healing absorbs, which it gets really tough at that point, but we're able to manage, we're able to actually heal these people up and get them out of their healing absorb, and we're going on to the last platform right here, which actually starts with a Wailing Arrow. She gets queued into a Wailing Arrow. So the way you handle this platform is you have the raid go into one corner, you have the Wailing Arrows go into the other corner, and you just follow the same priority, but with Wailing Arrow 2 and 3, you don't have them stack on that person, you have them stack on a different corner or somewhere in the middle. That way they can quickly get to the corner. And like I said, you just watch her cast bar. Same thing you'll see right here, Wailing Arrow 1, she's going to cast on that person. They get out, 2 goes in. Well, they actually did it wrong right here. And then 3 is going to go in right here. Ideally, they don't come back faster. And we had a barrier and probably a darkness going on right there that allowed us to just mitigate that. And at this point, we know we have a kill. We're pretty low, sub 55%. Now it's just a matter of dealing with these mechanics and not, you know, cleaving Veil of Darkness, Scream, stuff like that. The Wailing Arrows can be a big pain point on this last platform, but if in your mind, like I said, if you have a strategy, kind of like I'm explaining it, where you go off for cast bar, you should not have too much of a problem as long as you know when you can spread and when you can stack, right? So at this point, we know we can stack. The mechanics of the Scream and the mechanics of the Veil already went out, so at that point you can stack back up, and now we can handle the Wailing Arrows. So same thing, Wailing Arrows is just going to go in this corner, we're going to stay in this corner, and at this point I called for everyone to drop every single CD that we had left, which is a Darkness, a VE, we're going to have a Tide coming up, and then also use Personals. As a healer, I'm trying to provide as much healing, but then also I was trying to provide as much damage as I could throughout this last platform, or last phase for sure, because, you know, after this Scream, I'm pretty sure the raise is going to happen, which is her enrage, and she phases, or the fight ends at 49.9. So that's how tight it is. It's a pretty intense fight. I actually think Sylvanas is a pretty good fight. I really enjoyed it. I think that phase 1 was pretty solid. Phase 3 was really, really good. Phase 2 was okay. I don't really think it's the best phase. A lot of running around, but I do like phase 3 and phase 1 and how, you know, intricate they can be, and how, especially phase 3, how like you could really min-max your DPS and HPS, and also how, you know, mechanically challenging it could be. So that's the kill pool right there. If you have any questions, I know it's a very general like VOD review over the fight. I didn't really go into too much detail on like Resto Shaman specifically, but this is a Resto Shaman POV. If you do have questions on this fight as a Resto Shaman, go into my Discord or come into my stream. You can ask me questions. I'll be able to help you, provide information from there. And yeah.